Nothing in this podcast is intended as investment advice, and the people in this podcast may hold positions in the stocks they talk about. Do not buy any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Roast. I'm Phil Carroll.
And I'm Kevin Holmes.
Sunday the 29th of October. Clocks have gone back 1 hour, so we gain an hour in bed or however you want to spend it. Lighter mornings are the nights drawing in. Another week, another mass shooting in the US, this time in Lewiston, Maine, a state with one of the lowest genocide rates, leaving at least 16 people feared dead. Police actively searching for the suspected gunman, Robert Card, 40, who is considered armed and dangerous. It's one of those, Kev, where, you've got assault rifles, and this guy apparently is a weapons expert, used to work for the army, so obviously knew what he was doing. And I used to live up near Maine, and it is a very, very quiet state, so I guess for them it's something that they're very not used to.
Yeah, it's all over the news, front page news, and yet we have genocide on the other side of the world, and not saying it's not been 24-hour news, because it has, but who cares? Somebody gets an assault rifle and kills a load of people in America, and the value of that life seems to be multitudes higher than Israelis go in with tanks last night and kill X.
I mean, how would you solve a problem like the gun? I mean, we're not going to solve it in 5 minutes chatting on here, but I mean, is it access to guns that's the problem, or is it people with access to guns that's the problem? In terms of this guy's, apparently he'd heard voices, he was known to the authorities. So if someone's got a gun license, but they've been admitted to a mental asylum and they've been known to have psychosis or schizophrenia, shouldn't that gun license be revoked at that point when they're not fit to effectively they're not fit to drive or even walk down the road if they've been institutionalized or committed? At what point do you...
Yes, but you have to have the American right to protect yourself.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it the Second Amendment? I'm not sure which amendment it is, but you have to have the right to protect yourself. So this was enshrined in law, so no way can they take this license off you. But of course they should. They should take the licenses off. Who needs an assault rifle?
Yeah, the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, as you say, it was back in the times of 1700s, when they had probably a single musket that was loaded. They pushed the gunpowder down, they loaded it. It took them probably about a minute to reload. You can't go and do mass shootings with an old style weapon. Do you know what I mean? With a musket. So ultimately, as you say, who needs a army style assault rifle, rapid fire machine gun, effectively?
Yeah, well, the gun manufacturers want you to have one and want you to have several.
Yeah, this comes down to the NRA, doesn't it, again? And
the ammunitions companies, they all want you to have one as well. Yeah,
war equals money, doesn't it? Unfortunately, and So back to what you said at the beginning. Obviously, Israel pressing ahead with the invasion of Gaza. We saw the tanks going in last night into northern Gaza, over the border into the city, despite reports that he'd been asked to delay by Washington. And obviously, we've seen this week some progress in terms of the hostages. 4 hostages released for humanitarian reasons. I think it was a bit more elderly. I think it was a couple of elderly ladies that were released. Maybe they needed medication and they weren't particularly in good health. Sunak calls for pause to allow humanitarian aid to flow, but does not back a ceasefire, as he says Israel must defend itself after the Hamas attack. And also an interesting one, I don't know if you saw it, but the UN have been banned from Israel as well after comments were misconstrued by Netanyahu. Seems to be they don't like criticism, don't Israel, do they?
No, they don't. That's because effectively it's been pretty much a dictatorship.
Yeah. You see it going. I mean, it's going to be a very long, protracted, drawn-out affair, isn't it, this one? I mean, I'm glad, obviously, they're releasing hostages, and it seemed, but, I mean, how much longer can it go on? I mean, are Hamas playing for time by releasing 2 hostages at a time? I don't know. It seems like, that Hamas are playing the time card here, aren't they, by showing to be releasing a couple, waiting. It's like, how long can this go on?
Well, how can there be a solution? I don't know, but Hamas are definitely playing a game now which involves as much press and as much interest on their plight over the last 70 years, as they say, as possible. And that is understandable, because that's basically the situation they found themselves in, and they wanted the world to see it, okay? Mm-hmm. And that's the Palestinian people as a whole. But Hamas itself wants the total destruction of Israel. and Israel is basically saying, no, we are going to take you out part by part by part. So as long as the US stands with them, I think we're in, as you say, for a protracted length of time where they basically just take them out slowly but surely,
wipe them off. But then it begs the question: what replaces them? They'll just grow back with some other entity will fill that void. This what happened in Afghanistan. We saw it with the Taliban, with the Northern Alliance, with many different forces over time. We saw Saddam's regime wiped out. What was it filled with? It was filled with ISIL and ISIS. I mean, you just create worse things. I'm not saying that it can be much worse than Hamas because they are a terrorist, but ultimately, I don't know if Israel are making a schoolboy error here, aren't they, in the way that potentially could the way that this could escalate and the way they handle things.
Yeah, it's sort of the oppressed in terms of Israel has become the oppressor and has done for many years. And that's a statement that's used a lot by the Palestinians themselves. Yeah. But, they see that their safety is in peril, and they're going to go out and do what they have to do to sort it out.
Yeah.
I mean, the final end game is Israel is a nuclear state, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And so the end game is complete disaster.
And I wonder if that's why they've been battling for so many years with Mossad agents to make sure Iran is not a nuclear state, because they know that ultimately Iran is probably their biggest threat in the Middle East, isn't it? Really, with the Hezbollah, and also that. So ultimately, they have been driving and with the help of the US for many years to make sure Iran is not a nuclear state.
Yep. And ultimately, if it became a nuclear state, I think Israel would disappear.
Yeah.
They would nuke it, So anyway, this is a very depressing conversation.
Yeah. And then and this is one, you lived in Belfast. So now, I mean, what do you make of this? I thought I'd seen it all, but mass men appeared in a Belfast court during a murder trial, prompting shock and a review by Northern Ireland's most senior judge. The incident occurred during the trial of James Stewart Smith, accused of a 1994 double killing. The appearance of masked individuals, not immediately addressed, was later condemned by officials, including the Northern Ireland Secretary and the Lady Chief Justice. The police, maintaining a strong presence due to the trial's sensitive nature, have been instructed to prevent a recurrence of such incidents, and a comprehensive review is underway to understand how the occurrence was allowed to prevent it from happening again. What do you make of? Can you imagine being sat in a courtroom as a judge and just being faced with these masked men, 10 of them in courtroom?
Not really, but I mean, I'm not really overly surprised, knowing the whole history of Northern Ireland and Ireland as a whole. I'm not surprised.
Yes.
And I mean, 1994, what are you talking about, 20 years ago? Are you talking right in the middle of the Troubles? Maybe just after the Good Friday Agreement. I'm not sure exactly when that was, the date of that. But yeah, I'm not genuinely surprised. It's still large sections of the community, or not maybe large is a bit of an over-exaggeration, but there are big sections of the community that are still ruled by terror, effectively, without doubt.
And on to a new story which potentially could affect the markets in a positive or a negative. It could be a double-edged sword, but we'll go through that in a minute. That was the cap on bankers' bonuses in the UK being lifted from October the 31st as part of a post-Brexit shake-up. Initially imposed in 2014 as part of EU regulations, the cap was designed to prevent excessive risk-taking following the 2008 financial crisis, limiting variable pay to twice the basic salary. Regulators, following a consultation, decided to remove the cap, citing unintended consequences like diminished room to adjust pay based on performance or misconduct. While critics argue that lifting the cap might encourage risk-taking, others believe it could make London a more attractive business hub. Some bankers prefer the stability of higher basic salaries established due to the cap, making a swift transition to a bonus-phase structure unlikely. Discuss.
Well, if you think bankers, stroke equity people in banks, etc., aren't risk takers, then you need your head tested, right? Because effectively, that's exactly what we want them to be. We want them to take the risks to help businesses progress by lending them money, or by doing deals, or by bringing companies together in M&A activity, or whatever it happens to be. If they get royally benefited by that, well, then so be it. I mean, we still need things in place to make sure that things are being done in the right way, but it's not to stop them receiving less money. I don't think that was ever going to be the case. And what has happened? Basic salaries have just soared so that they could get paid more. And that's not been very beneficial for the bank, because that means the bank itself has to pay a lot out, even if they're not productive. So they haven't had as many people working in London and so on and so forth. But if that's gone, then all of a sudden London's a much more attractive place to work than Europe, because Europe, you can only earn twice your salary or 3 times your salary.
So from an attracting talent point of view, that'll be one of the benefits potentially. Without doubt.
But also attracting deals and wanting deals to come through the UK markets. You know, if a banker has an option that he wants to put a deal through the US and he gets paid, you know, glorious amounts of money, or the bank gets paid glorious amounts of money, and the other option where he doesn't, then where's it going to go? You know, I mean, I think it was handcuffs, and it was all about people also were upset with the bankers because of 2008 and what had happened with the whole finance situation that had gone on there with the, what did we call it? The subprime lending and
Lehman Brothers and all that.
They created, you know, contracts and different products that were ridiculous, you know, and they were bound to fail, and they did fail. And so, yeah, there was a lot of people
I think
angry.
it's what's needed, isn't it? As the UK market looks, it sort of sits in the doldrums. I think this potentially could make the appeal of UK markets more desirable, right, for people to come in and do deals and etc.
Yeah, let's hope so, because right now the UK market is struggling badly.
All right, shall we move on to our first guest this week? Today we're joined by Charles Bray, CEO, and Simon Rollerson, MD of Aterian. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Hi, hello. Thank you very much for having us back.
So Aterian just recently confirmed the initiation of a lithium-focused earning investment and joint venture agreement with Rio Tinto in Rwanda, as all required conditions have been met. Since the announcement of the joint venture on the 1st of August 2023, both companies have made significant preparations, including operational infrastructure setup and field operations commencement on the HCK project. Rio Tinto will have the option to invest up to $7.5 million in 2 stages, earning up to a 75% interest in the HCK license, exploring minerals crucial for transitioning to renewable energy. You must be very pleased with the progress here, Charles.
Yeah, no, we're very excited. We consider this a massive validation of all the hard work we've been putting in over the past year or so in preparation for our exploration activities, but more importantly, the joint venture. So very good.
Very good. So give us a feeling then of what's happening on the ground, both Charles and Simon. What's now they've obviously said, yes, here we go. First of all, let's deal with the money thing, Charles. You have received the money, or it's on the way, or what's the situation?
The money, we have invoiced for our initial payment. We're expecting that any day now. I'll let Simon talk about on the ground and the more geological and technical aspects of the JV.
Yes. So, you know, we announced this week that we had the conditions finally met that were outstanding on the due diligence process. But during the time since we first announced the joint venture back in the 1st of August, you know, Rio's been pretty busy on the ground. They've been getting themselves set up with their infrastructure, people on the ground, orientation work. And now they're out on the license exploring. So they're reevaluating some of the data that we generated previously through the soil geochemistry and the geophysical data. They're out regolith mapping, sampling, and getting themselves busy for the next phase. And I think, you know, ideally from our standpoint is that they will be looking to generate the data required so that next year, end of Q1, say, they can get some drills onto the project and start evaluating all these targets. You know, it's not a one target project. So there's multiple targets out there. You know, we identified 19, and we hope through the process of their work that they'll identify more targets on the property to drill. So it's sort of working towards getting a comprehensive drill program established and in place.
Simon, why would Rio Tinto come to you for a lithium project? That seems bizarre. Why?
Well, I think it's just the fact that it's an untapped province. So, you know, we were on the ground for the last couple of years in Rwanda, but it's only come into recognition, I guess, in the last sort of 18 months. Potentially, Rwanda is a new African lithium frontier. So with Rio, they're sort of pretty proactive at the moment on mergers and acquisitions on the exploration side for lithium. And so this sort of fits their book because they come in early as the first sort of major company into the country. They will gain themselves first mover advantage.
Okay, but from a major's point of view, is this potentially big enough for them?
I think potentially, yes, because the density that we see, if we look at the HCK license where they're starting the fieldwork at the moment, there's enough individual separated pegmatite targets that you set up a central processing plant. You can have numerous satellite operations within a few kilometers of the plant to feed into one central processing plant. Is there targets of 40 plus million tons as one individual target? We don't know at the moment, but that's the process that Rio is going to be going through to evaluate the individual projects.
Yeah, because for them, what is big enough normally in terms of a lithium play or any type of play, I suppose? What is big enough? It's
an interesting question. It's one that I don't think I could be in the position to put a number on it right at the moment because Rio have their internal targets that they sort of work to. But if you got 25 to 30 million tons, I think that would be more than enough for them to be interested in. Anything greater than that is going to be a bonus. But as I said, it's potentially not going to be in one single pegmatite zone. It may be multiple pegmatite zones that feed into a central plant. And because of the close proximity of all these targets to each other, the central processing facility would sort of be quite sufficient to satisfy that.
Okay. So how many targets roughly have been shown to be worth looking at?
Well, we identified during the course of our work 19 targets on the HCK license. A couple of those better known than some of the other ones. So the main one was a target that we called HCK1, which we did a bit of prospecting on and geophysics. We did some manual pitting, and that was around about 2.5 kilometers in length, up to 100 meters wide in places. It forms along the top of a ridge line. We don't know the depth extent because we didn't drill, and that's the process that Rio will be following. So who's to say that out there aren't more? I mean, it's in a part of Rwanda that's a little less explored and understood compared to other areas within the country. Historically, to the west of Kigali in the Kutumba area, that's where there's been the focus of all the previous artisanal mining activity, much less so in the southern parts of the country where we're based at the moment. So, it presents a lot of green sky or blue sky opportunity, rather.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think that from our perspective, what makes this JV very interesting is in the scenario where there is this target that's met by Rio Tinto, that's a very, very positive scenario for us, obviously. And if you look at comparable sites around the world, if you look at Jadar, where Rio Tinto was in Serbia previously, if we end up having a target that's half that size, then we're talking that it has a post-tax NPV in many billions of dollars. That's blue sky, as Simon mentioned. But the other scenarios that come about are also very, very positive for us. So a smaller amount that doesn't meet Rio Tinto's threshold has it reverting back to us, and is very, very positive. And what we have identified on all of these pegmatites is the existence of tantalum. And in particular, with these LCT pegmatites, there's often substantial tin as a byproduct. So that scenario where we get the data to come up with a mineral resource estimate on the tin and tantalum that's existing, again, is a very, very positive scenario for us. And then if it's a low probability, but there is a chance that there's nothing there, but we just don't really think that's a high probability at all. So for us, it's really hard to see how we lose from this joint venture. Just wanted to add that.
Yeah. So first base would be basically that you have tin and tantalum, and you have all the data to then probably go and mine that yourselves. And Rio walk away, don't really like it. The second base would be that there are tin, tantalum, and lithium, but it's not sufficient for them to go ahead and do it. But you still have the deal, and that's probably second and third base. And then a home run is basically there's huge amounts of lithium there, and you knock it out of the park, and basically they move in, create a mine, and you're going to be sitting pretty. Is that pretty good explanation or not?
That sums it up. That's it exactly.
Yeah. So they're going to spend a lot of money. You're going to get the information and know what the situation is, and all sounds good. And obviously they get a huge stake and a huge part of it if it's all seen to come good. But Yeah, we're looking forward to probably seeing some of this on the ground when we come out in a few weeks' time. So that'll be very interesting. And yeah. So Simon, with all your geological experience, what do you think the probability is that there is a good find of lithium here, both in strike 1 and strike 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 up to 19 of these things?
Well, it's impossible to say, isn't it, right at the start? But the indications and the data that we see so far from our work suggests and vector in towards potentially a successful project. But it's like Charles said, if it doesn't meet the size criteria or the grade criteria for a company like Rio, there's still a huge optionality on these projects for us and other partners going forward. So, we see it as a very sort of positive relationship and a positive joint venture.
Yeah. So tell us just a little bit more. What is happening in Rwanda as a whole other than this joint venture?
We've been working and have progressed with a number of artisanal mining counterparties, some joint ventures ourselves, that will allow us to secure supplies of tin and tantalum. We're assisting them in their productivity to make them more efficient and assisting them from an ESG standpoint. And in doing so, we're getting a tremendous amount of data. It's taking us a bit longer than we had initially anticipated. But I think the other side of that is we're very confident that we're doing it properly. And we're very excited to show you both what that means, because a lot of information and data needs to be secured prior to going and helping somebody to increase their productivity from 400 kilos of tin per month to 1,000. But by doing that and making sure we're getting it done right, maybe spending an extra 2 to 3 months on research and data collection, but it's reinforcing that relationship we have with that mining company, that small mining company. And we feel that that's a much better investment, that additional amount of time to secure ultimately that supply and that increased productivity. And so we've been working on that. And like I said, we're very much looking forward to showing you our comptoir, our site, but as well some of the sites of some partners of ours.
Very good. And Simon, just as a for people who want to understand Aterian as a group and what you're doing, just give us an overview of what's happening in Morocco.
Okay, so we've got field teams on the ground there. We've got these 17 projects, but we're focusing on 3 or 4 at the moment. The main metals that we're targeting are copper and silver. We put out some news, I think it's about 10 days ago, on one of the projects in the southern part of the Anti-Atlas mountain range called the Tata project. This is a sedimentary hosted copper target. We've identified copper within sediments along a significant length of strike of these rock units. I think we've traced them out for about 16 kilometers. We still have another 25 kilometers to test within the license itself or within the project itself. But we see visual copper everywhere. So what we're trying to do at the moment is zoom in on selected areas, see if we can understand better the metal concentrations and the controls on the mineralization and take it forwards. And then we've got another couple of projects. We've got a field team out on the ground just outside of Marrakesh at the moment on the Gibelette project, where we've got a nice dense swarm that we're identifying and mapping in of quartz carbonate veins hosting copper mineralization there. We're getting sort of from previous results 3 to 4% copper out of grab samples on that. We want to build up that knowledge so that we can put some trenching across these structures, which are up to 10 meters wide in places, and one vein we've traced 3 kilometers. So we're busy on the ground there, and we're just sort of advancing that data knowledge. We're looking to see what we can do on the Agnes project as well, and hopefully just negotiating with the drill contractor at the moment to see if we can get some scout holes drilled over on Agnes. I think the way that the year is just running by so quickly that it'll probably be now in early new year that we can get some drill holes put into the ground.
Okay, but things are moving forward anyway, and you're pretty optimistic about the copper in terms of that first project. And
oh, very much so. It's proving to be a very very promising target, and it's just got the scale about it as well. So yeah, we're busy on the ground. We're progressing the projects, and it's so far it's looking very good.
Simon, as this is the Sunday roast, we sort of picked a question for this season. And our question this season is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever had?
Oh, that's a really tough one. I have to give that some thought.
You want me to pause it for 5 minutes? Take the pressure off a bit. Well, I've loads of really dead air for a long time.
I think a good one would be measure twice, cut once.
I like that one.
That's a good one.
And what is the worst piece of advice you've ever had? Don't measure and cut.
Yeah. Look where your hand is when you're hammering in the nail. Okay.
Don't take your eye off the nail.
Yeah.
And Charles, what's the best piece of advice you've ever had?
Best piece of advice I had from a former boss, my first boss, Jay. I hope he listens to this. I hope he hears this. And that was, if you're going to trade a market, make sure you understand the market. So he just basically said, get stuck in, lift every rock, understand every bit from operations, tech, risk management, every little bit about it. And that served me very well.
Isn't that the same as to measure twice?
I think that is.
It's a long way.
The same, the long-winded way.
Yeah, the only problem with the market is you have to understand the personalities involved in the market as well. That definitely has a big impact. I'm starting to realize that personalities are a factor, if you like.
It's not just the market you're up against as well, is it? There's many different forces.
Yeah.
So what's the worst piece of advice you've ever had, Charles?
You shouldn't marry her. That came from my ex-wife's sibling. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. On that bombshell, we'll say thanks very much. Sounds like you gents are keeping busy, and we look forward to you coming back on in the future and updating the market, etc. So Simon Rollison and Charles Bray, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Let's move on to this week's second guest, shall we? I'll let you do the introduction this week, Kev.
Welcome, Shaun, to the Sunday Roast. How's things with you these days?
Really well, Kevin. Thanks for having me on the Sunday Roast again.
No problems at all. So you had some news this week on Haveiron and what's happening in terms of the decline. So do you want to give us a bit more detail on that?
Yeah, look, this is really business as usual, as I think people understand. To get to the bottom of the ore body, we go through 3 aquifers. The upper aquifer we've already gone through. The middle aquifer we've gone through. Now we're at the lower aquifer. With all of these things, our pattern of dealing with the aquifer is exactly the same. And just to put this in context, aquifers are not open bodies of water. They're just areas where the rocks are more porous. So you have some water generation or some water flow. And the reason we call it a contained aquifer is this is not linked to the ocean. This is not a endless stream of water. It's a body of water. It's a contained volume. It effectively at some stage runs out. So what we did as we go through each of them, we first put in the depressurization holes. So think of this as you drill into a pipe in the wall. The water will initially be under pressure and really come out fast. That would be dangerous if you had a human standing next to it. So you stand off it, you drill in and you depressurize those holes. Then you dewater them. You'll also put in higher diameter or greater diameter holes where you can put little pumps down, and then you'll pump out the water. As we've done with the lower and the upper aquifer, the upper still flows. We still do that pumping, and we have pumps just to keep up with it and keep the mine dry. The middle aquifer was a relatively small body, and that's really very modest now. This will be the same. You put in enough pumps to keep up, to make sure you can manage that water, and then you can mine through it in a dry sense. And what we've done is we've repurposed some of the teams to do the ventilation radius bores. That's a really important aspect of getting the mine plan into place. So really we've resequenced things. We've probably pushed back a little bit of time here, and that's just a risk management. And honestly, this is, say, a quarter. That's a speeding bump in the way that we've gone about this expedited development of Haveiron.
Okay, very good. So overall, when do you perceive after the aquifer is sorted out that you will hit the top of the ore body?
Yeah, we would like to see what the flow rates are before we're definitive about this, but yeah, we've kind of given that guidance, around the feasibility study at the end of the September quarter, which will allow us to understand that, allow us to probably have driven through that area, so we can bring that data all into the feasibility study. So without being definitive, I think that's how I think about it, but it's, and certainly that will give us enough time to finish the raised bores in parallel, plus doing the dewatering, and really they are the remaining risks. You're then into the basement rock, which is really competent, dry material. So we think this is the last really significant de-risking events, what we're going through now. And this is normal in what you do with any mine. Aquifers and the flow of water generation in Australia underground is virtually universal.
And what is the greatest, what would be nightmare scenario if it happened? I mean, could it cause the whole thing to not happen? Or is it just a case of something has to be rectified?
Yeah, this is where the great benefit of having the global major as a partner. Their risk management processes we think are first rate. We'd like to think we would have the same, but there's no question Newcrest and in turn Newmont approach these things we think in a tremendous way, and we agree with last week's decision at the joint venture, which both groups agreed upon this course of action. To stand off at a safe distance, to do the depressurization, to do the dewatering, it again is textbook. It's what we did at the two previous aquifers. It's what we'll do at the lower contained aquifer. So we're really comfortable. What you want to avoid is tapping into an unknown aquifer under pressure, and that is a risk. So what we've done is said, look, the decline's almost progressing too quickly. We haven't had time to fully dewater it. Let's just pause, focus on the ventilation structures, and then we can drive into that area when we think we've got it suitably de-risked. So this is best practice. The worst thing you could do is have an uncontrolled ingress of water into the mine. This effectively guarantees that doesn't happen. It's good risk management. It's good mine planning. It's good management. Okay, so you mentioned about the takeover. So what is the timing for all of this, and how is that going to affect you, do you think? So, look, the shareholder vote at Newcrest and indeed Newmont are complete and done, and were approved. The subsequent scheme approval, court approvals are in place. The effective date has come and gone. So I would describe it as procedural now, and the implementation date is the 6th of November. So just a bit over a week away. That's when Newmont takes the keys. We're still dealing with Newcrest. Newcrest are still our joint venture partner until the 6th of November. But for all intents and purposes, I think people can consider, and I think you've seen it in the way the market's reacted, we've got through that uncertainty. We now know Newmont becomes our joint venture partner in X day time.
But all of those people who are working for Newcrest today, I presume on the 6th or 7th of November are going to be working for Newmont. And probably the personnel's not going to change at mine level very much at all.
Yeah, look, one of the things we used to say on the sites was you change your shirt. The same team working at Haveiron, working at Telfer, and indeed other Newcrest assets such as Cadia, will all be working there the next day. These types of corporate mergers or takeovers tend not to have too much impact on the site teams. One day you're working with a Newcrest brand on your chest pocket. The next day it's a Newmont brand. But you're absolutely right. That same team will be there. No doubt Newmont's a bigger company. It has a more capable technical capability. That team will be augmented in terms of that overview of Haveiron. And we're looking forward to that. In fact, there's a Newmont office. Their technical office here in Australia is literally in the building next door to us here, which is serendipitous. It's we're looking forward to that team rolling up the sleeves and bring a new, fresh perspective to unlock the full potential of Haveiron. But this is good. This is really good.
So, Shaun, just give us a timeline of what we think is going to happen in Haveiron.
Well, the timeline's largely unchanged. We'll be getting down to the top of the ore body in calendar 24. That sneaks out from, say, around June 2024 into that second half. And then we still should be on track to set up the stopes and the development levels so that we can achieve first ore in 2025. albeit I think, people should be very focused on when the feasibility study is released, which will be definitive around there. But I think given where we are, we have some reasonably clear visibility on the opportunity to kind of push through into that basement, rock conditions, and up access the ore body.
Okay, and just on a broader note then for Greatland Gold, what is the other things within the Greatland Gold portfolio that's getting you sort of excited about the future in terms of what you can produce?
Well, I think there's three elements that we're really excited about. Let's start with the exploration, being now able to tap into that South Patterson, continuing the geophysical interpretation and continuing to think about what we're going to drill in the new calendar year is exciting. Ernst Giles is still something that we're very focused on trying to achieve this year. We still need heritage clearance and other things to be completed to finalise the access. But we've guided from the start of the year that we'd like to get the drilling done before the end of November. And we still think that's achievable. With every day that passes, it's a more ambitious goal, but we are super excited about that ground. The geophysics that we already have there is exceptional. It's another great address to drill or another great postcode to be in. So I think that's couldn't be better from an exploration point of view, and that builds on the scallywag and all the structure, all the ground we have along strike from Haveiron and indeed Telfer now. Moving to the mine, look, that's just a huge number of de-risking events. We update the MRE, we finish the ventilation, we deal with the lower contained aquifer, we get to the top of the ore body, we start kind of setting up our first stopes, and access levels are all tremendously exciting and tremendously important milestones, plus the feasibility study as well in that time frame. So it's a busy period ahead of us, but all of those unlock value. And then we have the platform, and the platform gives us the opportunity to keep looking at what can we do to enhance our platform. We're active managers of our portfolio. You've seen that in us kind of moving some tenements out that we weren't active on, bringing some in that we have immediately been active on, and we continue to think about how we can leverage this space, leverage our position in the Patterson, but also more broadly the Greatland platform, where our ambitions are unchanged in terms of creating a multi-mine, multi-billion-dollar platform.
And Haveiron itself, do you envisage that it's going to expand its amount of sort of ounces available within the mine as you move forward?
Well, there's two elements. I think your turn of phrase there was ounces available. Absolutely. We have a 6.5 million ounce JORC resource presently. We are updating that. We seek to release that in this December quarter. It will be late in this quarter, and I think we've previously guided that way. We do want to have it externally reviewed by independent, and we're going to share it with our joint venture partner, which I think I can now call Newmont. So that will take time, and we want to be courteous around that. But fundamentally, we remain on track and focused on seeking to share that with shareholders this year. And we've had to do it unilaterally because Newcrest didn't have the opportunity to update that as they intended. In terms of the production profile, just to remind people, the PFS had a 2 million tonne per annum production profile. Without being definitive, we're seeking to move that to 3 million tonnes in the feasibility study. That's a 50% increase. So that is certainly exciting. And then we're looking to understand how we can unlock the value of the Eastern Brescia and Northern Brescia in more bulk or larger scale mining operations. So there's lots to do. And with a kind of 15 plus year mine life already on that Southeast Crescent, there's a lot of opportunity to unlock value as we move into the ore body.
Yeah. Do you think you're going to be showing your grandkids this mine in the future?
Yeah, I do. I think the mine life certainly has the opportunity to double. If you look at where I'm out of Northern Star, we bought a series of assets with short life, and 8 years later, all of them are still in production, and all of them have plus kind of 5 year mine life in front of them of those assets suite that we bought in 2014, which I think was 5 assets. So underground mines, one of the lovely things about underground mines is they tend to continue on. the gold came from underneath, not from above. With open pitch, you tend to drill them out from surface and your pitch shell. You can do cutbacks, but with underground, there's always the opportunity to follow this theme, to follow the intrusive zonation and to continue to add mine life. And when you've already got your infrastructure in place, bringing in that incremental material is often remains economic. So I think Haveiron certainly will see me off, and we'll see how we go with the grandkids. But that's a little while away. But it has every opportunity for them to see it.
Very good. So just as a last question, really, what's your thoughts on the strength in the gold price? Then we've seen gold really pop up in the last sort of 10 days, I suppose, moving up well over $100.
Yeah, look, I think there's a number of factors that are helpful for gold in the short and medium term. In the short term, you've got a series of military conflicts around the world. I still think most notably Ukraine. That's an ongoing military engagement on continental Europe. You've then got the Middle East presently, which is a humanitarian disaster. And there's really no winners from that conflict. That's a really sad thing, but that geopolitical uncertainty is, as you often see, there's a flight to safety to gold in those kind of circumstances. In a more broader economic sense, what you're seeing is inflation starting to come down. That puts downward pressure on real inflation rates, i.e. the gap between inflation and interest rates. You've seen interest rates go up. And gold is a fantastic store of value against inflation. I think from what I've seen, some of the tables, if you bought gold in 1900 or just about any time between now and then, or you had bought shares or put your money in the bank, gold has been one of the best performing assets over 100-year or over a 50-year type time frame. It keeps up with the store of wealth. So we think as that short-term inflationary pressure, it comes out of the system and gets reduced by, or real interest differentials get reduced, or real inflation rates get reduced by the negative jaws of higher interest rates and lower inflation rates, gold becomes a really good commodity. And again, you're just seeing more and more portfolios add gold to it. And don't forget, we have the absolute luxury of being 20 to 25% copper. We love that from electrification space as well. And we love diversification. So it is a great feature of Haveiron that we're spoiled with both gold and copper.
Yes, indeed. I can see copper will boom over the next number of years just because there's fundamentally a deficit there. So again, when you said that to me, I said it was the last question, but I was a liar. The all-in sustaining costs of Haveiron, obviously we're doing the PFS at the minute, so without giving too much away, what are we talking about in terms of all-in sustaining costs, either from the previous study or what you intend to use for this one?
Well, the study really determines, or an output of the study is your all-in sustaining cost, as opposed to it being an input. You really want to build that up as part of the study from first principles. So that was US 643 an ounce at the PFS. That's about 2 years old, thereabouts now. So I think we have to recognize that there's some inflationary pressure on that over the last 2 years. We just talked about the impact of inflation, but precisely the same inflation that we've seen across the sector. So we were lowest quartile producer, one of the bottom 3 cost gold assets in Australia. I would have thought our relative position would remain very similar. Although there is some inflationary upward pressure, there's also the benefit in moving from 2 million tonnes to 3 million tonnes, the economies of scale from that. So it's hard for me to preempt the feasibility study, and ultimately that will be the deterministic outcome. But we certainly feel confident that there's no Haveiron specific changes that should knock us out of that lowest quartile position, which is where everyone dreams of being. And we have a mine that should be in that lowest quartile position, which creates, especially at today's gold price. And shareholders should also keep an eye not just on the US gold price, but the Australian dollar gold price, which is in excess of $3,000 an ounce. It's tremendous because you've got a high gold price and a low Aussie dollar. So gold in Australia looks incredibly attractive, and that, because our cost structure will be Australian, and that will drive our margin. So for us, I think we're in a tremendous place. We're looking forward to getting into production to actually translate that competitive advantage into cash flow.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you the final question, and the final question, you have to be a mind reader, because when this goes out, people are going to listen to it and possibly already know the answer. Who's going to win the Rugby World Cup final? Are you going to stay in your part of the world with New Zealand, or are you going to move over to those rather rough and tough South African boys who basically bullied England into a 1-point loss?
I think I'm going to go New Zealand. I'm going to stay in my part of the world. You normally staying with New Zealand's a safe bet. I thought the English played outstanding on Saturday. Almost were a little bit unlucky, but I think it showed the vulnerability of South Africa. I think Ireland was a little bit unlucky just not to make the finals as well. You know, South Africa's got through two incredibly tough contests, deserved to make the final. I think New Zealand's pathway just last week maybe just gave them that nice little freshen up. I think they'll be hard to beat on the night. So New Zealand for me.
Yeah.
Cross Tasman and that camaraderie there.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, and most English people are with you as well. We want New Zealand to win, not South Africa. After they beat us in the final as well last time.
Well, that's probably a bit sharp as well. So I think we can all agree New Zealand then.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, well, thanks for your time, Shaun, and good luck with all that is progressing, and we look forward to speaking to you shortly.
Shaun Day, MD of Greatland Gold, thanks very much for your time.
Always good to chat. Enjoy being on the Sunday roast, so thank you again.
God bless.
That was good. It's always good to catch up with Shaun and the Aterian boys, isn't it? What do you make of those two companies right now as they're poised?
Yeah, I think they both got a good shot. Aterian is looking like it's progressing with a major, obviously, on one front with lithium, and has obviously copper and silver in Morocco as well, and obviously the whole trading thing, which again, I repeat, is one of the things that the tantalum there in Rwanda, which is one of the things I really like. Yeah, I think good. And Greatland Gold, I think, has been sort of undervalued now for quite a while, and you see the uptick in gold, talking nearly $2,000 an ounce now, and the US dollar is also incredibly strong as well. So it's meant that the value of that in terms of other currencies is higher again. So yeah, looking strong, both of them, I think.
Good. So let's move on to the movers and shakers of the week. The best performer this week was Eternity Networks, which was some 850% up, which is wow. I mean, obviously very low volume on that, and I think quite a illiquid stock. It had been the news, I think, earlier in the month or back end of last week. There was a statement regarding the share price movement on Thursday. Basically, they just went over that the company was still in discussions with 5G innovation leaders to seek to come to an agreed position on the treatment of the subscription agreement. So there was a confirmation there, basically extending the TSP period. So yeah, it looks good, but move very well. I often see that.
There's not many people who hold that.
No, I mean, sort of came a bit out of the blue, that one, which yeah, it's good to see them doing that, isn't it? That, nearly a 10 bagger in under a week. Yeah,
I mean, as you said, I think before we talked or before we recorded, it's gone from like 450,000 to 4.5 million or something.
Yeah,
or 4 million. So it's close to 10 bags, and in 1 week is immense. But obviously they had something that was going to make them a lot of money, and is going to make them a lot of money. So maybe it's only the start of the story, because even 5 million is pretty low valuation for something that can produce some money. So we will see.
Anything else on the radar? Well, we had Contango Holdings, didn't we, which had a good run from the sort of 3Ps into the high 4s. What do you make of that? And obviously that was announced, or the share price moved on the Wednesday ahead of the announcement, which their hand was forced to make an announcement on Thursday, wasn't it? The share price movement. What do you make of that announcement?
Yeah, well, I mean, the announcement basically said that things were up for sale, weren't they? The coal assets, by the looks of things, are up for sale. So if the coal assets are up for sale, then, I would imagine the share price has to move accordingly, because certainly you've got the share price and debt on top of that. So you've got to be looking at a share price of at least, I think, into double digits, as people have been saying, from where it is now, if there's some sort of sale organized. Or why would they sell it? They would just progress themselves and keep on going and get the revenue themselves. So there's a sale, and then there's the RNS, or potential sale, and then the RNS was basically attributing all the different things that they're trying to do in terms of offtake agreements and selling raw coal as well, and the major steel manufacturer, which was taking the stuff to South Africa, they're going to sell 100,000 or 100 tons, I think, to them so that they can do tests. So yeah, there's a lot going on there, and I mean, I think the share price was battered. All sorts of funny business going on in terms of even the Telegram groups. People running Telegram groups in a way that is just not appropriate to drag the thing down. It really is not a good thing seen all in all.
As you just alluded to then, it's worth just stressing that the RNS did say, obviously, no formal offer is guaranteed at this stage, but I've been struck with that Transor International SC for the sale of up to 20,000 tons of wash coal, and they're going to trial, this multinational is going to trial 1,000 tons of contango's wash coking coal with the possibility of an 80,000 ton per annum offtake agreement. So the one thing from it, from a financial point of view, was that the company secured £1 million in a bridging loan for working capital. So I'm not sure what to make of that burn rate at this point, if they're using that just for working capital right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think they were running out of cash because they were potentially going to have sales long before now, weren't they? So and the trans company is what was it, Transor
International.
Yeah, have effectively delayed continuing to pick up this 20,000 because of logistic things. And so let's see. I mean, it should be worth significantly more than it is. And another one coming on to that was, we interviewed Colin Bird on African Pioneer and the first quantum situation that they've got going on there for the copper in Zambia. If you haven't listened to that interview, please listen to it, because I think this is really something that's a game changer. I think it's going to be something that is really fundamental and big. So yeah, I'm very, very bullish on African Pioneer. So let's see where it goes. What about BSF? They had something out on Thursday. What happened?
Yeah, BSF Enterprise announced strategic advancements, including the formation of a new company, Karato Limited, and dedicated to lab-grown cornea production, poised to expedite the transition of 3D biotech's corneal products into clinical trials and meet industrial demands. The company's fully owned by BSF. It operates distinctly from 3D biotissues to optimize the commercialization of cornea products. So looks pretty exciting, that one, doesn't it? Because we've always talked about the cornea, and it's good to start seeing some progress on that range of products.
Yeah, no, it's very good. It's good movement. And I mean, that share has been smashed from highs of 21, 22p all the way down to what? I don't know what it reached, 6 or 7p.
Yeah, it went down to way below the IPO. Did you notice the comment as well in the RNS basically about the statement regarding basically the cash position, which is quite nice? BSF feels well capitalized for the next 18 months with no immediate plans for further fundraising.
Yeah, so they don't need any cash. And really the City Mix sales, fast or slow, should put them in a situation where that should lengthen. Actually, it should move out more than anything. Obviously, there's always the option that they might buy something or buy another company or do some sort of M&A activity, which might need them to raise funds.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure they're not going to raise funds at this level, considering it's below the IPO price.
Yeah.
Or probably by end of business Friday, it probably isn't below that price. But we're around the 8s, I think, 8.5p I saw.
There's one this week, Kev, which obviously we had Mark and James on. I don't know if you saw the RNS, but it was a good one on Thursday morning. It came in. First Class Metals, a UK listed metals exploration company, and as I say, we had them on about 3 weeks ago now. They announced receiving 2 exploration permits for the North Hemlo and Isa properties, which are located in Ontario, Canada. The permits, with a valid until October 2026, symbolise a significant milestone, enabling the company to intensify exploration efforts through drilling, stripping and trenching. Mark commented, expressed gratitude towards the Ontario Mines Department and the First Nations for their support in achieving this crucial advancement, emphasised the strategic objective of bringing 4 core properties to drill-ready status this year. The permits paved the way for more profound and systematic exploration, particularly in evaluating potential drill locations. So great to see the 2 permits granted for those properties.
Yeah. And as we said when we had them on the show, was that they were very much focused on Ontario, Canada, and all their different licenses and projects were all around Ontario. So they're a very focused company that hopefully is going to get the best out of the assets they have. So yeah, that's very good. The other one which we had on, I think it was last week, is Sovereign Metals. We've seen them have a better week, up 14%. But the big news was that China have put, not ban, but basically saying that there has to be permits for graphite exports. So the scenario is that all graphite producers around the world and graphite companies have gone up quite significantly this week, especially the ones in Canada and the US and Australia. And London has been left behind to a large degree. Tirupati's done quite well, but Sovereign Metals are only up 14%. And yet a lot of these companies are up 50% plus, because it's going to have the second biggest graphite resource in the world when everything gets up and running. So quite strange, really, that it didn't react in the same way. And, having been at a high of 40, 45p late last year, I think it was, or early this year, to now be in the low 20s seems rather strange, and a lot of value.
And a major investor with Rio Tinto owning 15% of the... I mean, you couldn't make it, really, could you?
No. And we also, we interviewed Oliver this week as well from GMET, Golden Metal Resources. Again, some very, very interesting stuff he was talking about in terms of what was happening in Japan when he went to the conference there for the tungsten. But yeah, as he said, you've got tungsten, you've got lithium, you've got copper, and you've got gold, all in the one company and all in Nevada. A very, very good mining jurisdiction. So again, another one to really look at. It's still basically at IPO price or below. So yeah, I mean, the opportunity there with the Americans having to finance these deals to make sure that they protect their own products, because China has done something with graphite. What's going to be next? Could it be lithium? Could it be tungsten? Could it be copper? It could be anything. And GMAT has full range. Golden Metal Resources has full range of these things. So yeah, I'm becoming more and more bullish on that as well. Extract also had some news this week regarding the gold pours. It looks like they're up significantly in Mozambique. That should mean good revenues coming in there to Extract. There's been a lot happening and in the resource base, and maybe this is the beginning of people waking up to the true value of these things. Ben's Creek is another one. Ben's Creek, again, in my view, significantly undervalued based on its production levels now. Pretty much full production. They're going to be selling a lot of coal going forward. The margins aren't as good as they were, but there's still a positive margin there. We haven't seen much more uptick in the price, but we might, as time goes by, see uptick. But even at these values, my view is that it's definitely worth more than the 14p or whatever it's at.
What about TM1 as well? TM1's sort of down on the week, isn't it, since last week? I mean, what do you make of that? Just
Yeah, well, we had Robin on last week, didn't we? And, very, very bullish about what's about to happen. I think there's just a bit of uncertainty about the Recyclist deal and the fact that Recyclists and Tech Minerals will become one. From our chats with Robin, this is a given. It's going to happen, but he's not willing to give us any more information than that, but it's happening. So I think nobody should be in any doubt that it's not going to happen. It's going to happen.
and it's massively de-risked now, isn't it? From a perspective of the licensing, they've got the the lead acid license. Obviously, that they need to do some commissioning, and I think maybe that he mentioned that the figure of around 4 to 6 months, didn't he? Just to be he's been very conservative to make sure everything's in place and everything, everything's tested, because the last thing they want is some sort of hazard on their hands, or so yeah, the 18 verticals of basically revenue streams coming in was a really good positive to taken away. And obviously the fact that by November time, then the money coming in, the revenue should cover the working capital of the company.
Yeah. And I think there'll be some, you can't have that many negotiations with that many people, and there can't be some very good upside surprises here, because in terms of valuation, it's ridiculous. It's valued at about, I think, £20 million. A recyclist should be valued at between 70 and 100 million pounds, and they own half of it. So, you do the math, that's 35 to 50 million just in Tech Minerals as it stands. Once it all becomes
even take in all the, the mining licenses at Leinster and in Utah. So, you've got a good valuation on those, haven't you, from the 10% sale?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think absolutely bog standard minimum. When this is all put together, you got to be looking at £120 million valuation for the whole thing, which should be comfortably a share price of around 5p, and you're looking at 1.3, 1.4p at the minute. So yeah, and that's without any nice upside surprises, which we don't know with all these negotiations going on whether any of those things are going to happen. Yeah, it looks like there's going to be some more news happening with Chill Brands as well. Chill Brands has obviously got those deals recently with WH Smith, and still working with that company that has a lot more places for it to go out in. I think the shop count number continues to rise on a daily basis. I spoke briefly with Callum, and he was out in America, in Denver, Colorado, having a board meeting and doing some stuff. So yeah, he was all very optimistic about the stuff that's ahead. So there's definitely some news and stuff coming with Chill Brands, so we will have a look with that. So anything else that's on your mind?
Not really, no. I think we've wrapped it up there. I think we're good. There was an article which was right interesting on BBC website about we talked about dumb money last week, didn't we? And you went to see it, I went to see it. Pete Roscoe, an experienced trader, has observed a rise in the popularity of short selling, especially among amateur traders, facilitated by the online trading platforms, obviously, that we're all familiar with. Roscoe advises caution, highlighting the high-risk nature of short selling and recommending it only to those who can dedicate significant time to understanding market trends. The increase in short selling has been particularly noted during the COVID-19 pandemic, as people sought alternative ways to make money from home. Despite its risks, platforms like eToro have seen a phenomenal rise in customers engaging in short selling, offering tools like CFDs, contract for differences, to manage risks. Even with protections in place, the practice remains a stressful and high-risk way to engage with financial markets. You all see it, don't you, when you register for some of these apps like Trading 212, eToro, Robinhood, that, something like 75% of all investors lose money, don't they? That there is a nice warning on there just to kind of make you aware.
Only 75%? What occurred to me this week was that I wonder, and I was thinking about this because we're, just thinking about the end of the year scenario in terms of where we all sit, was that how many people will actually be up in 2023 on a portfolio in small caps? I wonder what percentage of people are actually.
I would imagine pretty low based on the year.
Yeah, I would say it's pretty low, but it'd be interesting to have that conversation with a few people a bit later in the year, towards the end of December, where we are. I see some peaks and troughs. Some things are happening, some things are not. It's definitely a bit sporadic, but let's see. I still will say, and I said it too early, obviously, that I thought this year was going to really be good for resource plays. It hasn't played out that way, maybe because of wars, maybe because of all things that are happening. But ultimately, we are coming to a time, 24, 25, 26, where there is actual physical shortfalls of metals, of resources, and we've got a high gold price. We've got instability, which normally means all of these things should start to move in the right direction if you're long. Obviously, if you're short, then you're very happy.
Very different, isn't it? Yeah. In terms of TV and highlights, check out Boiling Point. If for any chefs out there, any budding chefs, a fellow Scouser of yours, Steve Graham, great actor, unbelievable actor. In fact, probably one of my favourites at the moment. He's in a great series about chefs and the high pressure. And then obviously the Beckham series, and probably not one of your biggest, you're not his biggest fan, but ultimately a great story, great England footballer as well, very dedicated to the team, and very interesting documentary about it.
But on the flip side of that, Rebecca Lowe's been or Lewis or whatever has been sticking the boot in, hasn't she? And I don't blame her really.
A liar, basically, didn't he?
Yeah, he portrayed her as a liar, and in my view, there's absolutely no doubt he had an affair with her. And she's not. Why would she lie? She's from a very wealthy, well-to-do family. Her father was a foreign minister or something, and her mother was something else. So, she had no reason to lie. It wasn't for the money. It wasn't for the fame and publicity. So, yeah, strange world we live in these days. But there you go.
It is, and then obviously we had Frank on last week from Sovereign Metals, Frank Hagar, and he said that the Springboks would win, and he was right. Unfortunately,
he was bloody right.
He was bloody right, and it was one of them games, wasn't it? Sat down, watched it, all family watched it, kids enjoyed it. So we led for 78 minutes, as you all know, and it was just you just knew the script would be written where they would get the penalty they needed, and they won by 1 point. Devastated. But to be fair, if you'd have said to me before the game that we would lead and we would do so well against the Springboks, I'd have taken it all day long.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not a big rugby connoisseur, I have to say, but what I see is that because of the rule changes in the scrum, that the game has become dominated by the beefy boys in the
Unbelievably, you're absolutely right. The scrum let us down. That cost us the game for sure.
So they were saying that Ireland, New Zealand, Argentina are the teams that are flipping it about all over the place and trying to play good rugby in terms of entertaining rugby, whereas England and South Africa are not. They're basically just all brute strength and stuff around the scrum. And because now you can get a penalty from the scrum, which you never could before, then, if they put the power on there, they're going to get it. And that's how they won the game.
Absolutely.
And don't get me wrong, England weren't exactly brilliant. So, we can't turn around and say we played brilliantly, lost, because we didn't. But, there were decisions as normal when there's only 1 point in there that could have gone either way.
Sure.
And, there you go. But South Africa have been posting, they beat us by 229 runs in the cricket, I think it was.
Yeah.
And also beat us by a point in the rugby. So, South Africans were having a party that day, I think, yeah.
Absolutely. I think we'll say thanks for listening. We'll update you next week with any other news. I'm away next week for a few days, but no doubt we'll have some podcasts to bring you. So if you like what you hear, hit the subscribe bell icon and hit the subscribe and hit the bell icon for any future notifications.
Yeah, and I remind you that this week we did a podcast with Gold Metal Resources. Catch up on that one if you want, and a podcast with Colin Bird, an African pioneer, and I encourage you to listen to that one.
I think we'll say see you later. See you next week.
Yep, see you next week, guys. Thank you for listening.
This podcast was brought to you by Roast PR Limited. If you would like to appear on a future episode of The Sunday Roast, please email admin@thesundayroast.net.